Hey, Grampian Nation, here we are again, and we are going to talk to an igniter, a human performance coach, an author, co author, and just an all around cool guy. His name is Erik Gabrielson. We'll be right back.
In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Well, Erik, welcome to the Grampian, man. It's good to see you. It does me really good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
This will be fun.
Well, in all fairness to our audience, they ought to know that you are a nephew to my wife, and that's not nearly what makes you as impressive as some of the cool stuff you've done. And that's kind of what we want to chat about, man.
Yeah, well, and given that I'm a nephew to your wife, I'm also a nephew to you.
True, but to her by blood. So, all right. So, when I look at your history, I mean, I first met you, you were like, a little kid, but you were
Yeah,
just shredding on this little hill in Minnesota kid.
yeah,
And what was the name of that
yeah.
hill?
Buck Hill.
Buck Hill
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Minneapolis. Yeah. And it turned you
yeah.
into a ski racer, really.
It was where that was the home place where I grew up skiing and then ski racing and ultimately actually coached for the team too.
Oh, cool.
So and it's got Buck Hill's kind of an infamous little ski area that from a ski racing perspective, people all over the world know about because they've had quite a system there. So it was a lot of fun. It was a super grateful for the opportunity to be doing that when I was growing up, and it allowed me to get out of the Twin Cities and be a vehicle to see the world.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
that trained a lot of ice racers, didn't it? I mean, it was just
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
skating
Back
rink
then
with the slant
there was
on it.
there was a little less snowmaking, so a lot more ice as a result, and a whole 250 feet of vertical but you had a rope tow,
Yeah.
so and so you just got lap after lap after lap after lap.
There you go.
So
Right
it was a
on.
good place to learn to ski, but you needed to get outside of there
Yeah.
too.
So that took you to the NCAA as a St. Olaf alpine ski racer.
Yep.
And so, I mean, people don't recognize, but St. Olaf is a little private college on the south side of the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
And they have an incredible history of ski racing, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they've really focused and they've got some great supporters of the ski team for decades, and and they've continued to invest and support and bring skiers from all over the world actually to go ski at this little
Yeah,
college
that's
in
awesome.
farmland.
Yeah, really, right? So,
Yeah.
how did you originally get? How did you know about St. Olaf? How did you know that that was the place you were going to go ski at?
I don't know if you know this about how I ended up at St. Olaf. So I took a year off. My gap year was ski racing, and I had deferred my enrollment to both Boulder and University of Vermont, and I was dead convinced that I was going to go to one of those two
Uh
places.
huh.
And then the supporters of Olaf kind of reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested in staying in Minnesota?" And we had the conversation, and I ultimately chose to go to Olaf. And I actually never saw the school until the day I showed up.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, when you were growing up in this competitive ski environment, what did that do for your outlook as you like graduated from college?
Um, well, it's interesting because I think it did a number of things. One, it absolutely expanded my I guess my viewpoint of the world,
Hmm.
broadened it, expanded. It taught me some amazing, I think, life skills, which we talk about so much with athletics. In particular in ski racing, managing risk,
Yeah.
uh, and which ultimately I managed it, but I ended up having uh, a really severe head injury that almost killed me and ended my ski career.
Yeah. Was that at
So there
Vail?
was what's
Was
that?
that at Vail?
No, it was actually in Tahoe. It
Oh,
was at
okay.
nationals.
Okay.
It was at nationals, and back then uh, we didn't wear helmets except for the real speed events, and so was the GS. And I wasn't wearing a helmet, and I crashed into the finish line at a very high speed and stopped with my head, and it had I actually had to drop out of college, and that's a much bigger story.
Yeah.
But it so going into that, I mean, some key things: managing risk, commitment, you know, uh, work ethic, believing in yourself, and self confidence, and what it goes into to really doing that. Even though skiing was an individual sport, in college it was a team event,
Hmm.
and beyond that, a community event. And
Yeah.
so, just really, paying attention far beyond yourself was some pretty big things. But then with my head injury, that opened the world in many, many other ways that
Yeah.
I would have never really anticipated until then. So I think um, coming out of college, it really gave me some focus and desire um, and a willingness to really work hard and bring my best.
Yeah. So has that TBI, has that had a long-term effect on you? Do you feel any results these?
It did have a long term effect on me. I mean, literally for 20 plus years, it had a long term impact on me. I think to some extent it still does, with my ability to concentrate in certain
Yeah.
arenas. But I had severe headaches that would come on out of the blue for many, many years. I had a lot of other side effects, and I learned some things in ways to be able to manage all that, and eventually it got less and less and less and less, and now it's just all kind of background noise.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
we're still learning about TBIs and all the long-term effects that they have on them. So, man, good on
yep.
you for fighting
Well,
through it.
yeah. Well, and then they didn't know much at all,
Yeah.
right? They just really didn't.
Yeah. It's going to feel
So
better
yeah,
when it quits hurting.
that could be a whole story in of itself. But it did change some perspective on like a number of life events, on what's important and where I want to put my effort and
Yeah.
focus. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And so you got out of that and you went into the real estate business ish with the Carlson companies, if I remember right.
yeah, that's good memory.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a great training ground, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I mean, it was an amazing opportunity. I went in and it was a small firm that managed a large portfolio. So
Yeah.
probably one of the largest family offices in Minnesota. And we were on the real estate side and mostly the commercial side. And yeah, so I had an opportunity to go in and not only be their main analyst, but a property manager and work on what we would call special projects. And that led me to the ability to be plugged into, the top strategy and also
Sure.
into Carlson companies, had the opportunity to, right out of high school, be presenting at the board level. And so that was quite a learning experience. And then that led me into having pretty good opportunities pretty quickly on doing different types of real estate development and investment, and really understanding that game,
Yeah.
and and how creative, you wouldn't think, at least I didn't think coming out of college that type of a job would have as much creativity as it did, but it ended up being a big attractor to me.
Yeah. And it's really, at the end of the day, it's really all about relationships in real estate, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep. I mean, not just real estate,
Yeah.
right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, it did. It definitely relationships, and when you're able to go in and work with a office like that, yeah, their relationships and their integrity in the marketplace, and everything was really apparent.
Yeah, and you know, for those people who are apart from Minnesota, the Carlson Companies is a pretty big. I mean, they founded, I think, if I remember right, the Radisson hotel
Yep.
chain, and
Hmm.
some some other hotel chains that were pretty amazing, and so they were huge in the hospitality side, but they also had a real estate arm. But this is a pretty massive organization that
Yeah,
started with gold
it
bond
was.
stamps. I mean,
Yep,
it's a
yep.
crazy
Founded on
beginning.
Gold Bond. Yep, yep. Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
do you have mentors that you remember from the the Carlson days that really stand out to you at all?
I have some mentors. I have mentors from the real estate days that stand out, that actually got me into the Carlson group,
Hmm.
that used to work there, and I formed a relationship. Did my senior project at St. Olaf with a guy by the name of Keith Alstead, who ended up being probably one of my bigger mentors in the real estate game. He's still in the real estate game, and that I remember. I have probably more influential mentors in my career coming out of the real estate game
Hmm.
and what I've been doing the last 25
Sure.
years. But yeah, that Keith stands out as one who took me under his arm when I was, a senior in college, and really, brought me in on working on some pretty cool projects, and opened the world up to me of real estate. And at the time, it was one of the worst real estate markets that had happened in a long, long time.
Yeah.
So people were thinking I was quite crazy coming out of college to go look at finding a career in real
Yeah.
estate.
Yeah.
And Keith was a big part of that.
Yeah, and those cycles are just they're brutal, man.
Mhm.
I remember coming to Minneapolis, I'd have done anything for a job. I did do almost anything for a job. But now you talk about that and you went into I'm going to call it performance coaching, high performance I think you call it human performance coaching.
Yep, human performance, individual and collective, human potential, human performance.
Okay.
Yep. Hmm.
So when you think about that, you can't think about a team without first thinking about the individual. And
Yep.
I mean, I work with a lot of companies on their culture, trying to get the little things right, so the big things might fall into place. And
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about your journey in performance coaching.
Uh, so my journey in performance coaching was, I was still in the real estate game, doing. I had ended up, doing going from Carlson, and started a family business with my father, and we did development and management and build that old portfolio. And so, he was a mentor of mine also, big time. And uh, and the types of real estate that we were doing was starting to get more involved with strategy of the organizations, and working as partners with the leaders, which led to some other entrepreneurial things. And then uh, this was probably right around when I was about 30 years old, and at that point in time, I thought I had life pretty well figured out. I had a great career, and it allowed me to play and do the things that I wanted to do. And then my father got sick, and a few other things happened, and in a very short time frame, I went from figuring out, thinking that I had everything figured out, to being really clear that I didn't have much figured out.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I got invited to this leadership program in California, and it was put on by two guys that had been doing high performance, human performance work at that time for 20 years, at the professional sports level, at the military level, and they had just finished doing a classified stint with a special ops unit,
Mm,
and they were bringing that work out to the everyday person. And somehow I got invited to this beta program,
nice.
and I went there thinking it was going to be rah-rah crap that I didn't want much to do with.
Understood.
And what's that?
I said that's completely understood.
Yep, right. And so I show up, and out of all the 24 other people that were there, the person that I connected with most right away was one of the two guys putting on that program.
Oh,
And his name's Larry Burback, and him and I just instantly connected. And it was a week-long program, and he started to get to know me, and and about halfway through the week, he looked at me and goes, Erik, this isn't rocket science. It's not rocket science. You did it growing up skiing, you coached at skiing. So, my question to you is, why aren't you doing it in your life where the consequences are a lot bigger?
yeah,
And what he meant by that was, why aren't you getting really clear about what's important to you and um, and what you care about most, and putting intentional practices every day to support making that happen?
yeah,
And it was the right question at the right time. And at that time, he'd already been doing, as I said, this high performance work they were groundbreakers. They were this crew of people that started in the 1980s. They're a big reason for a lot of the stuff that's going on now. And Larry had been doing this work for 20 years all over the world. His largest client at the time, which has ended up being one that I worked on for quite a few years, was with Cargill, doing work all over the world for
sure.
executive leadership team down to just about all the different business units. And so I was already kind of moving from transactional to people side of things in the work that I was doing. And I, on my own dime, said, "Hey, Larry, I want to learn." And I ended up, being part of his team, and that and I left everything else behind, and because it was just, the impact was so amazing, and it just lined up with me. And Larry ended up being probably the biggest mentor in my life, best friend and partner. And he's just recently retired, and so that's how I got into the work.
Nice. So give people a flavor for what it is that you do in terms of high performance or human performance coaching.
So that's a hard one to explain, because people like to put it right into, it's about team building and that kind of stuff. And there's a certain kind of, I think, assessment in the world around what that means. And really what it is that's just a small piece of it. But what it is it's helping people and team of people, a whole culture of people, get really clear about the ideal future state they want to go to. Why is that important? And getting aligned around that collective vision. And then we call it aligned, and then attuned. So if aligned is where you're going together, attuned, is where you're going, attuned is how you're getting there
Yeah,
together. And that's one of the biggest pieces that we see is not addressed.
yeah,
People think alignment is enough, and it's enough to get there. And so with that, then, we bring in the tools. We don't bring in the answer. We bring in a framework and tools to help people and teams come up with their answer and put their practices in place to really support that happening, so it's theirs. But it's really around shifting the dynamic from win, lose, right, wrong to unconditional support.
mm,
And because as soon as you're in a right, wrong, a win, lose conversation, you've put a governor on what's possible.
yeah,
Unconditional support looks like, I learned something, and instead of holding it close to my vest for power, I teach it to you. And not only do I teach it to you, I support you to take it further than I did.
yeah,
And then we do that collectively, and now you've got unlimited potential.
yeah,
And then it's around trust, and then executing at very, very high levels once you have that, and managing your promises and really managing your commitments. And so that's what we do. And we bring organizations and teams through this process. We do a lot of experiential learning, because experiential learning accelerates the learning. It makes it, you can as soon as if you stay in an intellectual conversation, you can rationalize all day long why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
As soon as you go into an experience, you can't pretend.
Yeah. You get to
You're
figure it
you
out and
are
then you
you
have to own
show
it.
then you have to own it, right? And not only do you see it, everyone else does.
Yeah.
And so it becomes really good information that either you can choose to do something with or not. Is it serving you or is it getting in the way?
Yeah.
What are the behaviors that create that all those acumens to be a high performing team? And like you said, we talk about, people say there is no I in team. And what we find is it's all about the I
Yeah.
in the team, right?
Exactly.
You can't have an accountable team because when things go sideways, there's nobody to go to. A
Yeah.
really high performing team is made up of individuals choosing to be accountable for the mission of that team.
Yeah. That's
It's
awesome.
how they show up, not what they get from the team, what they give to the team.
Yeah. Isn't it cool when you see that light bulb go off though? And you
Yep.
watch it, especially in a team context, and you're watching, and you're like, boop, boop, boop. You good looking around the room, and one at a time, they're going, "Oh, you mean I got to have their back?"
Yeah. Right. And the biggest piece, Jim, I think, that you were kind of inferring to is to get there, you need to get outside your comfort
Mm-hmm.
zone.
Yeah.
Right. And so often in organizations it's about creating comfort.
Yeah.
And it's now you need to, and especially in today's world, you need to create the dynamic and the tool set for people to be able to play outside their comfort zone into
Yeah.
what we would call the learning zone.
Yeah.
Right. That's where the big stuff happens. And so to be able to build that trust, that's a big piece of it, right? And to say, oh, you mean I need to have their back? That's not necessarily comfortable for people, right?
Yeah. Especially someone you had just got done with little friction with.
Right. And that's where some of the biggest opportunity and
Heck
some of the other
yeah.
places, right? I mean, that's and so often, you talk about the alignment and people will say what's missing a lot is not having your big life purpose figured out, but it's, are you clear about the tasks you're doing on a daily basis? How are they connected to what you care about, to the team, to the organization, to the customer? Where's the through line?
Yeah.
Right. And many times people make people wrong for for feeling like it's about them
Yeah.
when it is about them,
Yeah.
because they're worried naturally about whatever's going on, how it's going to impact them. And just to that friction, that's the huge opportunity,
Yeah.
is to go explore that.
Yeah. And Lencioni is one of the guys who actually brings that home. It's pretty. It's a novel concept, even for it's, and it's not. There's nothing new, and there's no magic there.
Yep.
Like I say, I just love watching the light bulb go off when it happens. So good
Yep.
on you,
Yep.
man.
It's
Good
super
on
fun.
you. So
Yep.
one of the other things that we wanted to talk about is like you talked about figuring out what's important in your life. You came to a point where you figured out what's pretty important, didn't you?
I assume you're referring to our son.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Gonna
This,
help everybody out here. The book is called Our Fear Never Sleeps. It's available on Amazon or wherever you buy books. I think Amazon is probably one that's got it right now. And it's you and your wife Moira wrote a book about your son,
yep.
kind of.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. We co-authored, and it was just writing that book was an amazing experience.
Oh, it's yeah.
And it helped us uh, reconcile a lot of things, really understand. But what the book is about is it's the intersection of the work that we do in our own family journey.
Yeah.
And everything that this kid taught us. And I look back, I'm like, man, I couldn't imagine going through that without the tool set that I had been taught.
Yeah.
And because it was just a few years after that he was born. And yeah, it's clarity came about really quickly. We show, I don't know how much of the story you
Yeah,
want
well,
to.
let's break it down to the early bit. So I want you to know. I mean, I have been praying for Pike, Kieran, Super
Yep.
K. He's
Yep.
been on my prayer list since before he was born. And it's
Yeah.
just crazy to me to see some of the videos. And we're gonna actually show some of the videos. But this story is not an impossible, it is impossibly improbable miracle that
Yeah.
you even get to say hi to him today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
you married late in life, and then you've got this news that you're going to have a baby. It's like psych. It's going to be
Yeah.
awesome. You got it all planned out. You got it figured out, and then
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say we quite had it figured out, but we thought we were, we thought it wasn't going to change our life too much, right? Being married in life, and I married a very independent woman who had her own life going on, and and so we still thought, we were going to, keep living this pretty cool lives together in adventure, and we did live in adventure, but not the adventure that we expected, right? So we show up, super excited, and it was ended up being kind of a week late, but the midterm ultrasound, and going, thinking that the biggest decision that we need to make is, do we want to know the sex of this kid? And we left with the doctor with a severe diagnosis, and the doctor actually recommending us to end the pregnancy
mm,
because he had such a severe birth defect, and he had an extreme case of it, and he had less than 25% chance of survival, and all the assessment was, if he did survive, it would be short and ugly, and that wasn't going to be good for anybody.
yeah.
And
So what's
um,
the big word? I mean, there's the so, and the diagnosis. The one the scary diagnosis was.
Yeah, the scary diagnosis was, which was he did end up having, and about as severe case as you could get. It's called congenital diaphragmatic hernia, and so in his case, he had in utero he had no left diaphragm, so his stomach, his intestines, his pancreas, and his liver floated up into his chest,
Mm,
pushed his heart to the wrong side, and didn't allow his lungs to grow. So when he was born, he was not able to breathe on his own.
mm-hmm,
And what kills these kids is pulmonary hypertension,
mm-hmm.
because there's not enough oxygen in the blood. So the heart thinks it needs to work, and it goes until it fails.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, that's how he entered into the world. And so it was uh, it was an amazing diagnosis, and one that we were not prepared for. And you're talking about him, and Kieran, and where he is now, and so obviously that's not the choice we made.
mm-hmm,
And my wife would say that the bigger choice, actually, the whole story, and the bigger choice wasn't about whether we are going to keep him or not. We were in. It was now it was the next choice, which is, how are we going to show up for this kid,
yeah. Wow,
right?
wow.
Because it was on us.
Yeah, and there's not and there's you're in this as a new parent now, and now you're facing this thing that, like, it's this minute percentage of people have ever even heard of, and
Yep. And
it
there
shocked your
was no.
system.
Yep. Absolute shock,
Yeah,
right? We had no. I mean, I can remember walking out of that appointment and us hugging each other, and just like, what do we do? And we're have no idea,
yeah,
no idea to where to go next, right? And there was no playbook, there was nothing like
yeah,
that, and so yeah, so we went from there,
yeah.
and one of the things that was really clear right away, that I think probably is one of the main things that saved our marriage, because once we knew we were going to have the kid, so talking about teams and all the stuff that we're talking about, um, we we're having this kid. Now we got to find the best team in the world
Mm-hmm.
to have this kid with
Yeah,
us, right? And and so we did a worldwide search, and um, it was pretty clear. Even there was a group in Germany that was doing really uh, at the time kind of the forefront, and they were doing surgeries in utero, but it was really clear that that was risky to the mom. But
Mm-hmm.
on either side of the coast, there was two hospitals that were showing up as, hey, they've got experience with kids with CDH, and we were talking to these interviewing these different teams, and they would say, yep, we agree, less than 25% chance of survival, and we'll do our best, and here's kind of what we do. And then we interviewed a team that said, yeah, we agree, it's 25% chance of survival. Given his severity, we think he's going to need these types of treatments. And what you need to know is that um, here's what we've done with kids. Here's our track record, but we're in it with you.
Yeah.
We're going to assume your kid survives until he doesn't. And that started to kind of really line up with us, because what we knew, and back to the kind of what saved our marriage, is what we aligned around, which is um, we knew that the biggest thing that was going to get in the way of what's possible for this kid was our own fear,
Yeah.
and us trying to control the outcome, and we needed to let go of any outcome
Yeah.
and accept what is,
Mm-hmm.
and re-enter into every decision, every thought, everything we did was now around. um, we had to kind of put this filter: is this about managing our fear, or is this about giving him every opportunity to create his life,
Yeah.
whatever that is? It could be for a day, a week, a year. But because there was already a collective story around what was possible for
Mm-hmm.
this kid, and we wanted to turn it around and have him create his own story.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started to orient ourselves. And it turned in from having the answers to asking the questions and learning, because there was no playbook.
Yeah.
And that is how we get new information, make a decision with that filter, take an action, and take the next closest step to what was possible.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things is I read through this book, and I've read it multiple times. I even went through and I dove in again, and I'm like, man, that
Yep.
was this is crazy. It, simply because the initial diagnosis basically says there's no hope. There is
Yep.
no hope, and these wonderful people in Minneapolis generated the ability for you to see something that was other than death.
Yep. And so I also want to get back to, because you got me right into the story, but thank you for praying for him since he was before he was born.
Yeah,
There's been a collective, I think, a big collective group of people that have been doing that and so really appreciate it, because yeah, I mean, every bit of it is energy behind
yeah.
moving something,
Well,
right?
it's kind of
So
funny because I had this guy in the Seattle market who taught me to be like really disciplined in how I pray. So I like make these color coded lists. It's so weird, anal retentive, but it went from Pike to Kieran to Super K, and
yep,
that has happened over, well, what, 16,
he'll
17
be
years?
17
Oh my
next month.
gosh.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy, isn't it?
crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
The power
He's
of
as
hope.
tall as, he's as tall as me. He's a lot stronger than me now, I think. But he's a lot better skier than me too.
Oh, well, we'll put a video up. So we're going to put a video up, and we'll just keep talking, and people can make up their own mind, because I look at that and I'm just like, this is just so cool. This is so cool. So, you're now uh, Kieran's born. You're going through massive surgeries. I mean,
Hmm.
to add a artificial diaphragm into half of your thoracic cavity. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't even. I mean, I've had some pretty cool injuries, and I got some awesome scars, but I ain't holding a candle to this kid.
Yeah. Very few people can hold a candle to this
Yeah,
kid, right? I mean, he had, I mean, instantly he had surgery within, less than an hour of being born because he couldn't breathe on his own. So he was put on what's called ECMO, this machine that does the work of the heart
Hmm.
and the lungs,
Yeah.
and half your blood is out of your, body at any point in time in
Yeah.
this machine
And he
being
didn't have a lot to
oxygenated.
spare right then either.
He didn't have a lot to spare, right? So I mean, just that procedure and being on that machine is highly risky. And his first surgery was he was on that machine while he was going through surgery,
Hmm.
and he ended up having, I don't know, almost 10 surgeries before he was 2, and then he had an annual surgery because he kept on reherniating until he was 5.
Hmm.
So he's got one scar that goes from basically his navel all the way around to almost his spine in the back, that just screams at you because they had to go in the same place to repair it
Hmm.
5 separate times.
Oh, wow.
And and what's crazy is most, now with where he is in his life, you would never know that anything is up with this kid
Yeah.
at all from the outside until he takes his shirt off and pulls his shirt up, and you can play tic-tac-toe on all the scars,
Yeah.
right? And um, so it's yeah,
And to help people
he has been.
understand, um, your diaphragm is a muscle that has to grow. And so
Yep.
as his body size changed, that necessitated further corrective surgery. Isn't that accurate?
Well, I guess they don't know for sure because the first one that they put in was actually a biological patch.
Okay.
So it was designed and supposed to grow with, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So then they had to go in and put in a Gore-Tex one.
Uh-huh.
And then, the combination there of they had to repair that a few times, but yeah, he's been good since. And the other amazing thing, so ECMO was one of the first things that kind of saved his life. Then, then the first surgery of, as you said, they had moved everything back down to the abdomen, put a prosthetic diaphragm in, and as it turned out, once there was enough room, he had a little bit of a right lung, but he had no left lung,
Mm.
and and he since has grown a left lung, which is, I mean, the other kind of amazing lesson in this whole journey, other than him being a super stud, is that just how freaking adaptive humans are,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what is the human biology is capable of
Yeah.
is just is mind blowing.
It's
At least it
incredible.
has been for us in our journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the things, I think it was on page 102, I got it marked here, but one of the things you said in the book, and I keyed into that kind of as a dad and as a grandpa. And you think about that, you say you learn more in 1 minute from Kieran than you learned in the rest of your life combined.
Yep.
Tell the folks out there what that looks like.
um, well, a little bit of context to kind of create how that showed up, right? So, we had found our team, and to we had to plan the day that he was going to get born because we needed the team there to save his life,
Yeah.
right? So it had to be planned, and so we get to that day, and of course, you know, uh, we get there at 7 a.m. and it takes all day. He gets stuck. And so my wife, Moira, had to go into emergency C-section. And by this time it was 8 o'clock at night. So we've been out there all day.
Mm.
And so my wife gets taken away to emergency C-section, and I get brought in, a little bit into the surgery, and I get brought in, and Moira's on, horizontal on the table, and has a screen up in front of her. I get to sit right next to her head and hold her hand and see everything that's going on. And so I get in, and it's kind of right at the moment where the doctor is going in and pulling Kieran out, and I'm sitting there, and literally 30 feet away, there's a door with 5 people waiting for him,
Yep.
and the nurse comes in, and he literally never stopped. He got pulled out, the umbilical cord was cut, the nurse took him, and he was put in and intubated right away because he couldn't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to leave with him to the NICU and the doctors and leave my wife on the table. She never got to see him.
Mm.
He never cried. He never did any of that because he couldn't.
Yep.
And so all that stuff, all my life culminating in that minute. The other thing that had happened is a few hours earlier, we as parents needed to sign away all parental decision making rights to the doctors because they couldn't come to us. They needed to act.
Yeah.
They needed to be in full control and full decision. So I had intellectually, even with all the work that we do around not being able to control, I had intellectually knew that, you couldn't control the uncontrollables around you. But that is the very first time in my life that I really, really understood that the only thing I could control is how I show up in that moment.
Yeah.
Right. We had no decision making rights. My kid couldn't breathe. My wife never saw him, and he's being taken away by a team of doctors to the NICU to save his life.
Yeah.
And that amount of clarity and understanding, and again, back to what's important and the impact that I could have in the world, was all about me and how I could, my choices on how I was going to show up.
Yeah.
And that and even that moment, and even his diagnosis was probably the biggest gift to me as a parent that could be, because even up until his diagnosis, we kind of talked about this, was, hey, this kid is coming, he's going to be here in a few months, I hope he doesn't impact our life too much. And and I was a little bit laissez-faire like that. And as soon as the diagnosis happened, it was, oh my gosh, the only relationship that I might have with this kid is while he's in my wife's womb.
Mm.
And so that changed everything. From I want to talk to him, I want to be in relationship, I want to name him. Hence we came up with the name Pike.
Yeah.
And it changed how I showed up for my wife and her pregnancy, and everything going forward from there. And then just doubled down in that first minute of his life.
Yeah. Wow. And when you look at the subtitle of the book, it's like letting go. Letting go. Or let's go fight for what's possible.
Yeah. Let go to
Let
fight
go.
for what's possible.
I'm sorry. Let go. I need my grandpa glasses on. So let go to fight for what's possible. So when you think about that process of letting go, that's just incredibly painful to endure.
And once you do it, it's incredibly freeing.
Yeah.
Right. So that statement sums up the two different experiences that my wife and I went, how we went through the experience. So part of why we co-wrote the book is because we went through the same experience, but two very different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That we had to come in. And on the front end, my wife at the time was an academic and research and, advised PhD students. And so data was a huge vehicle for her.
Sure.
And so all the data that was coming back with our kid just reinforced what was, not good data.
Mm-hmm.
And so she talks about, everything that she was envisioning of being a mother was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the data wasn't telling her what to do.
Yeah.
And I was focused on, well, what's possible? Yeah, there's 25%. I was focused on that 25%. And so what we realized is that the journey was about letting go so you could fight for what's possible. Because if you held on to what was previous and what your beliefs were and what you were, what parenting or what the data was saying, we had to accept everything to then be able to get into ambition to get after what was possible.
Yeah.
And and there was obviously no guarantees.
Yeah.
No, we're so fortunate to be telling this story,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
But but with the hospital team and some of these things, it didn't guarantee anything. But what it did is it opened up the possibility for this outcome to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And during that process, your choices now are gone. Your
Hmm.
ability to affect the outcome is evaporated right in front of you. And yet you had to choose how you're going to handle this.
Well, so so I think we had a high ability to affect the outcome. It just wasn't the outcome that we originally planned on.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can't out hustle a doctor.
No, no.
You
I mean,
can't.
so yeah,
Yeah.
so we what we could do is create some make choices to help take an action towards that outcome.
Yeah.
I agree with you. We couldn't control the outcome at all. You can't control the
Yeah.
outcome, right?
Can't out
But we
you can't
could
outwork it
control.
anymore. Now you got to just let go.
Yep,
Let go.
yep,
Wow. But your
and just
focus then
accept.
was on the horizon of what he could be.
Yep, and being in the moment.
Yeah.
Just my wife Moira will tell you her how she shifted in the pregnancy is she couldn't focus on the future. We couldn't
Yeah.
if we focused on the future, it was debilitating,
Yeah.
right? So it became what was most important is what was happening right then and now,
Yeah.
connecting to what was going on with each other, with what was happening with the pregnancy, whatever it was, that was what we could focus on, and be grateful for even having those moments.
All right. What an awesome lesson. We're going to take a break right now. Let us gather ourselves a little bit. I know this is emotional for you. I can see, but the outcome is good, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, at the Grampian, we only take sponsorships where we actually use and love the products, and y'all know I love my dogs. At Canine Meats, they believe every pup deserves healthy, satisfying treats that are going to help them perform at a higher level. Get Canine Meats.
Hmm.
Hey, Grampian Nation, welcome back. Here we are, and we're sitting with Erik Gabrielson, and we're talking about Pike and Kieran and Super K and the wonderful outcome that is made possible by lots of stuff, a great team that you put together. So the name of the book again is Our Fear Never Sleeps, and I'm going to point that out because I think it's cool. Their artwork is amazing, and when you can co-write it with your wife and stay married. That Sarah's my editor, so I actually get it. um, and as I look at this, and now you folks are going to see some skiing videos and stuff like that. But are you at a place now where your fear ever gets to take a nap?
uh Well, I don't think my fear ever takes a nap. I think we just have learned more and more how to navigate it and accept it. And
Yeah,
the big piece is take action within it, right?
yeah,
Not resist it, but acknowledge it and take action within it. I think that's the big piece.
sure. So the risks are still ever present.
Yeah, for Kieran, the risks are ever present.
Yeah,
Yeah, he would bringing him up. We didn't really. Uh, tell people about his story, like even going to school and stuff like that, because we wanted him to navigate the world as he was,
hmm,
and not have people have this story about him. And but his normal is, he does have reduced lung capacity.
yeah,
He his first 2 years of his life, because not only the stomach didn't form, but the sphincter to the esophagus didn't form, so he would puke up green bile multiple times a day, where typically if that happened once, he'd be in the emergency room, and that was his normal.
yeah,
And it impacted every his life quality, all
Sure.
sorts of stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then he just most recently had heart surgery, and because he had scars on his heart and the electrical stuff wasn't working exactly right, and so he will forever have stuff go. His body has had to adapt because the skeletal system is different, and then with all of his scars. Um, Especially doing the stuff he is now, the muscles are out of balance, so he has to do a lot of extra stuff
Hmm.
to. So it's just and it's just his normal, and so he will forever have issues that he's dealing with, and just like as any parent, now he walks out the door, and there's everyday life stuff too
Yeah.
that we all manage and fear and
Yeah. A
put in
teenager with a
place a lot
car.
of. Huh?
A teenager with a car.
Yeah, he actually just bought his first car. So he just bought a car that's older than him, a 2006 Tacoma.
Oh,
So he
wow.
could get her. Yeah,
Oh, my
so
goodness.
He's pretty psyched about that.
So, how then has this affected? So you have gone on. You've allowed him to live what I would say is a huge life.
Hmm.
And it reminds me, there's a guy I chatted with who's Chad E. Foster, and he was the doctors told his parents he was going to go blind, and so they said you need to send him to blind school. Instead, they signed him up for soccer, saying, "Hey, man, we're going to finish. We're going to if you're going to go blind and it's inevitable, well, you might want to play soccer before you do that." So
Hmm.
it's inspiring to me that you conquered that inner fear that said, "Hey, I'm the protector. I'm the defender. I'm wait a minute, you're the facilitator of a big life, man. So
Yep.
congrats on you and Moira.
Yep.
I couldn't be more proud. So um as you move
Thank you.
along and ski season is winding down, now you get to focus on business. How has this experience affected your outlook, your performance, your business?
Oh well, I mean, it's. I mean, I can't even explain in the multitude of ways that it's impacted. Our own experience through all the teams and all the stuff that we've talked about, as you say, facilitating a life.
Hmm.
The application to that in leadership, in what happens within organizations, the adaptability rather than putting a bubble around to allow the
Mm,
person to go out and create the trust and the space for them to take risk
yeah.
and make mistakes. And so it just all the stuff we experienced at real time within our own journey, which has allowed us to apply and bring an added perspective when we're working with people. It's given us probably more confidence uh, in our own business, and it's allowed us this whole letting go and not holding on to safety that gets in the way of getting after what's possible,
Yeah.
has allowed us to transform our own business in a couple of different ways, especially in the last couple of years, in completely changing from 100% in person and some Zoom calls
Yeah.
into an AI, a human performance AI integrated platform that can help others transform, has just been it's been amazing.
Okay. So, you went from, I mean, you were like a Minnesota kid who longed for the mountains for way more
Yep.
than half your life. And you took the plunge in 2020,
Yep. Hmm.
2020. So, why did you move to Park City?
So we knew as a family that we were going to move to the mountains. We knew we needed to wait for Kieran's lungs to get strong enough to be able to live in the
Uh huh.
mountains. And so once he started to get healthy enough to be able to do that, in various different ways. So this was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
We as a family, we put a plan together. We define this next place that we want to live at, the type of community, the type, what type of life it would support for us. And so we got aligned around, and by the way, we included Kieran in all these discussions since before he could talk around his life. So he was included, right?
Right on.
And so we got aligned around this is the place. This type of place is where we want to be. So we started testing. And it was pre-COVID. We started testing, and because it ended up with a list, and then COVID happened, and then once the lockdown opened up, it accelerated our urgency to test.
Yeah.
And so Park City was on the list. It was pretty high on the list for various reasons. And Kieran is absolutely obsessed with skiing. I ski raced, he free skis. So he does, the slope style and half pipe on skis. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
And so I was still back in Minnesota, and Moira and Kieran came out to Park City at that year to test out the team and Park City. And literally 2 weeks into it, we're in one of our calls. I'm in Minnesota, and I think this was January, and they said, we're not coming back.
Decision made.
Yeah, we found the place.
Yeah.
So when you figure out things in Minnesota, you can come join us.
Yeah.
And that's how we moved to Park City.
Yeah.
And it was awesome because we all knew, right?
Yeah.
And it was, and it's been, we've loved it here. And Kieran has absolutely just thrived here. Awesome. And I mean, we moved out, and it was, we finally got out, had to sell the house, got out, and officially probably April 1 of that year. And I travel for work, and I was still had a bunch of business back in Minnesota. And so literally within a week of us moving out there, like, hey, I need to go back home to go to work and
pay for lift tickets.
He goes, Dad, Minnesota is not home.
Oh, wow.
Park City is home. Right? That's how long it took him to say, this is my spot.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how scary was it then when COVID kind of reared its ugly head, and you've got this pulmonary challenge that you're living through on a daily basis, man? Yeah.
COVID. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly, he was a high risk person for sure.
Yeah.
And it was exacerbated by my father-in-law. So Moira's dad was the number 34 death in Minnesota. So he was right away. And so we had that whole front end experience, which, impacted, but, again, back to the fear. Are you going to let the fear manage you, or are you going to take action within it? And so, we were dead set on figuring out how to not live in the fear of it, but to figure out how to manage through it in a way that worked for us and the communities that we were involved in. And fortunately, he's outside of his that he's a super healthy kid.
Yeah.
He doesn't get sick a whole lot, and
he's tougher than us.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
2, 3, 4.
Tell us a little bit more. You mentioned AI and human performance coaching in a context of AI. So a lot of people are sitting there going, okay, so you talk to a computer and it tells you what to do. How does that relate to coaching high performance?
Well, it doesn't just tell you what to do. So it's so with AI, you can engineer it on how you want it to show up, and now you can create experts on any
Oh
competency
yeah.
to support all different types of processes.
Hmm.
And so for us, it became the ultimate thing where we could instead of having to have a coach like myself at your beckoning call, and you would have to have appointments. Now we can bring people and teams and help create cultures through these processes, and it greatly accelerate the application
Hmm.
with these AI tools, and do things now, bring people and process in ways that together in ways you've never been able to do it, because so often process is done over here and the people stuff is done over here
Yeah.
and not always brought together. Now AI is to let you do that. So now we can create whole platforms to support an organization, from creating knowledge centers and unleashing their institutional knowledge and upskilling everybody in the organization, uh, and create tools to align and put the practices in place, create workflows,
Yeah.
help them make buying easier. It creates an unlimited way to start to solve problems, bring people together, and execute at a really high level.
That's awesome. One of the things that we work with on the we do the cultural revival blueprint, and people are shocked and stunned to find out that I use AI to create some of the plans for their company and their action list that they're going to do to revive their. They said, "Hey man, if I knew I could type that in, what do I need you for?" I'm like, "Well, somebody
Hmm.
has to actually figure out what the problem is." So
Yep. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you taking that out to the marketplace then?
So we are taking it out as we are your transformation partner.
Mm-hmm.
So our belief is that if you haven't started it yet, that not just AI, but the way the world is, at some point in time, you're going to need to transform
Yeah.
your organization, right? And a big piece of that is creating. It's not just the AI tools; it's creating a learning organization
Mm-hmm.
and all the type of culture that is going to set you up to be able to navigate all this unknown and learn and continually build this muscle of alignment, but what also we would call breakthrough learning.
Mm-hmm.
So not just taking a look at your actions, but what's creating the actions you have available to you, taking a step back and creating the muscle, which is again back to comfort, takes you way outside your comfort zone, around looking at your existing belief systems and which ones are serving and which ones are getting in the way. And if you can shift those, it opens up actions that were never available to you to
Mm-hmm.
get the results that you didn't think possible,
Sure.
right? So we are, and then we're saying, and AI doesn't transform, people transform.
Mm-hmm.
Your people are going to transform your organization. AI is a tool to do
Yeah,
that,
for sure.
and support and accelerate and greatly enhance value and all these other types of things. So we're going out to the marketplaces. We're your partner. We are dedicated. We're part to help solve your problems and help you take it to the next level and be competitive in ways that you've never been before. And the other way we're doing that is we're teaming up with other subject matter experts that are in similar spaces, that we can help enhance their capability, and bring a team in. And so it's been a lot of fun, because AI is really different than your traditional software implementation. And what we're seeing is so many people are still seeing, how does AI plug into my current way? And really, you need to get to the place where you completely shift the paradigm.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then unlimited.
Gas on the
And
fire.
yeah, yeah. And the cool thing about it is the new central character is the subject matter expert.
Yeah.
and that could be an external or internal. So
Mhm.
you can now take, what people have called tribal knowledge, and create that into institutional knowledge, and just upskill and support and learn so
Yeah,
fast.
and distill it so that it's repeatable and scalable is
Yep,
such an
exactly.
amazing tool that
Yep.
now are you using like Chat GTP 4.0 or Grok, or have you done any
So
comparisons?
what we've done, yeah, so what we've done is we have created our own native proprietary AI
Oh,
platform,
wow.
that we can plug into the appropriate LLM, and we've created it so you don't go to the internet, but that organizations can now leverage and manage their own data and their own IP,
Yeah.
and they can go to the internet and use other things if they want. But now, so that's where you can really start to explode, these capabilities. So yeah, so we've created our own platform that we are working with, small to medium sized businesses to help be part of their team, and kind of create this knowledge center, one source of truth, and be able to plug into all the other tools. So it's a lot of fun.
So you also got a lot of experience working with family businesses. And
Yep.
as you're now aware, Ryan and I have worked together for, well, since he was probably, 12 when we were first building our first house, but we formed legacy and stuff after that. So if you've seen all those family dynamics,
Yep.
that especially when it crosses going into the third generation and things like that. Tell us about your
Hmm.
experience with family businesses, because there's a ton of them out there that are looking to, the boomers aging out and the Xers are coming in, and-
Hmm.
or are already in most cases. But now we literally have six generations in the workforce now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't that yeah,
It's
that's
crazy. I mean, they all have these misconceptions about I talk often about the greatest generation, said the silent generation was a bunch of nerds. They dance funny, their music's weird. And they said that about the hippies or about the boomers, and the boomers said it about the hippies, and on and on and on. Now the alphas are going, and what headaches do you get in
I
these
mean, what
cross
headaches don't
cultural?
yeah, I mean, what headaches don't you get, right? So there's a saying that you've seen one family and you've seen one family.
Yeah.
But there are so many consistencies across, in ways that you can manage all those headaches. And so I'll, just a couple of them is one of the things that we work with families, is to start to again, back to mindset, and reorient and expand your definition of family business from just a family business to a family enterprise.
Hmm.
So now you start to define it not just as the operating business or the moneymaker or the cash or the wealth,
Yeah.
um, there, but what are all the other assets, that, intellectual assets,
Yeah.
social assets, spiritual assets, all those types of things. And what, there's a number of different statistics around how hard it is to go from generation to
Yeah.
generation. But there's more and more research that is showing that if families focus on the money, then that that limits the ability to transfer into the next, because there's got to be some
Yeah.
purpose that goes bigger. And so if you can start to see it as a family enterprise, and everything that is happening, and all the people that are involved and all the stakeholders that to be involved, that becomes a huge engine. And back to alignment, right?
Alignment. That's what I was going to say. To
I
get
mean,
those
it's
generations speaking the same language and aligned on,
yeah.
like, we're going to go to Dallas, but we're going to go through Vermont from Boise.
Hmm.
That path doesn't make a lot of sense.
Hmm. Yeah, and so to do that, so one of the biggest things, and this is one of the hardest things that we see too, because it gets you way outside your comfort zone, is we call it flipping the conversation.
Uh-huh.
So often it's the elders that believe, that are working with their advisors,
Hmm.
that think that they need to come up with the answer. They want to pass on their values. They don't want their kids to be entitled. They want their kids to have ownership. And so often, the way the industry has worked is the elders work with the advisors, come up with a solution, and push it down the family,
Yeah.
and then wonder why that the younger generations aren't stepping in.
Yeah.
But if you flip the conversation and get them involved in determining that vision and what it's going to take to do that vision, what behaviors, what values, 99.9% of the time they're going to come back and say all the stuff that you want to elders want to pass down to them, but now they have participated, they see themselves in the future,
Yeah.
that through line is there for them and they own it.
Yeah.
And instead of creating a competition amongst them, they start to see the value in the different perspectives and rely on each other for making better decisions. And it's just amazing when you shift that.
Yeah.
And then the other big piece is to understand it's a system, right? And the system is, it's not just the business. There's the ownership and there's the family,
Yeah.
right? And many times, people, especially when you first start a company, all three of those circles are the same.
Yeah.
And then once you
The
start
dinner
to
table
go
is
out,
the boardroom.
yeah, right. But once you start to go out and it becomes, the sibling partnership, but then it becomes a cousin consortium.
Yeah.
The complexity and the decisions are all very different than the first and second generation. And so one of the things that these creating a family enterprise is that you could have a high impact on the family side, but also what does it mean to be a good owner?
Yeah.
You may not work in the business, but you might have ownership. And so to be able to separate those two creates a lot of opportunity and helps create governance and ways to support and make better decisions. So there's a lot of tools to help really, and then it comes down to that alignment and ability to be able to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
So
Communication. I mean, without you can, well, number one, if your alignment isn't there, you're not going to talk about it. and if you can't talk about it, you're never going to get aligned. And so it's kind of a chicken and egg. But yeah, it's been a fascinating study. I always said that the reason that my son was my partner was because he looked at me one time and he says, "I'll always know that you love me more than money." And I'm like, well, thank you, I think.
Awesome.
But there's so much truth in that. Because you could say the same thing about power, control, or money, or prestige, or whatever you want to call it, ego. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that says a lot about you too, and how you were showing up.
Well, I think that when you coach somebody, and to your point with bringing Kieran into the conversation about where we're going to end up early, the best coaching doesn't happen in the workplace. It happens in life. It happens on the driveway. It happens at the dinner table. It happens on a job site, whatever. So, and I think a lot of us, especially the two people here, we learned that way. Yeah.
Well, and I think what you're speaking to is it shows up where the space has been created to have it show up.
Yeah.
Right. And if you aren't intentional about creating that space, it's really hard for those moments to show up.
Yeah. You can't have quality without quantity. Yeah. When you talk about time, especially, I mean, if you just from a parenting standpoint, you can't, you can have like 10 minutes of dedicated quality time. You just design it that way. No, man, you got to take about 4 hours and you might get 10 minutes of quality time.
Right.
So
I love how you say that. And it can't just be once.
Yeah.
Right. You got to be willing to be in it numerous times and have nothing show up until the magic shows up.
Exactly. There you go. All right. So you are using AI to reflect, mimic, augment 25 years of coming alongside people. I love the Greek word parakaleos because it means that you come along, you just glide right in alongside them, and you're there to support, not necessarily direct, but not correct, but guide. And so how do you use AI then to supplant that 25 years of I already know? now I have to show.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can, we, to answer that gets a little bit in the technical side of AI, but it's what we're doing is leveraging a different type of database.
Okay.
So typically, we I think just about all of our businesses are highly reliant on databases, and they tend to be highly structured,
Yeah.
right? And the more accurate they are, the more valuable they are
Yep.
to you, right?
Perfect.
Okay. Um, and there's another type of database called a vector database, and you can put in completely unstructured data. Okay. So what it does is it takes the words, turns them into numbers, and then turns those numbers into vectors. And now you've got a three-dimensional database
Right.
that understands neural networks and semantics. So now when I type in monkey into a traditional database, only things monkey show up, right?
Yeah.
You've done a good job and you know what you're searching for, and monkey shows up. You type in monkey into a vector database and it knows it's a mammal, it has 4 legs, and it likes bananas.
Yeah.
So it will find relational things.
And it's not looking for an
And
opposable thumb.
right. And so what that allows you to do, we call them brains, because now you can make them come alive.
Sure.
So we've taken our 25 years of human archives, put it into a vector database, and create multiple different types of coaches.
Awesome.
And engineer your AI how you want it to show up. And so now when they all, and it allows us then, and what we think is we're actually going to be having more live meetings, because it's the human stuff is so important. But when we do, it's going to be so much more focused and even more productive, because now you've got a whole system and coaches that can help move stuff and apply things and create the ability to come into that live stuff to get even more out of it, and then accelerate what happens.
That is so cool.
Yeah, you can create these brains and now have all these different types of coaches. And so now, I mean, you don't need to call up Erik and say, hey, can I have a coaching session? It's, you can design and then have a coach 24/7 at your side. And working with a manufacturing company, we can create an onboarding and a young engineer coach that upskills them and gets them adding value much faster, and can take a 30-year veteran, create a standard operating procedure, use that as the rules for this brain, and now you have accelerated the competency of your entire engineering team.
Yeah, and that strength that it really lifts. A rising tide lifts all boats, and in many ways, what you're doing is you're information sharing between that depth of experience and whoever the weakest link is.
Yeah. Back to that unconditional support.
There you go.
Right? Rather than holding it tight, we're now creating that support mechanism for all of us,
That's
like you
awesome.
said, to move forward.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so the business name is
Project We.
Project We, WE, and the website is
projectwe.com.
Pretty easy. Projectwe.com. And how do you want people to get a hold of you, Erik?
Yeah, I mean, that or LinkedIn is probably one of the easiest places to get a hold. Is LinkedIn.
Erik with a K. Gabrielson sounds like Gabrielson. There's no way to screw that up.
Yep. Project We in Park City.
In Park City. Okay. And so one of the things, so I don't want to forget, folks, go on Amazon and get a copy of this. If you want to know one of the hows to have hope when things look hopeless, let go. Let go so you can do what's possible. All right? Okay.
Yep.
So the final question we always ask everybody on this podcast is it's Grandpa Chats with Champions, and the champions sometimes we are defined not by the victory, but by the route, the path, the grind, whatever it took to get there. But they always is a mentor. And so who's one of the champions, Erik, in your life that affected your journey in such a significant way that you would go, wow, that is the who?
Well, can I name 2?
Hey, could I stop you?
Actually, I would love to name 3.
Okay.
But I already named one, Larry Burback,
okay,
who is the one who got me introduced to this work. He he has been my biggest champion,
Mm-hmm.
our biggest champion as a family. He just turned it, from a mentor to a best friend to I love him like a brother, and just an amazing influence over me and our family. But I think the two other biggest champions are my wife.
Mm.
She's just been amazing how she showed up for our family and for our son. And then if you read the book, you'll understand why Kieran was probably the biggest mentor
Yeah.
and taught us the most
Yeah.
around this life and what's possible and what it takes to live joy. I mean, this has been an absolute amazing journey and lessons every day.
All right. That's awesome. It's nice to have three. It's nice to have, we all have more, but to put Super K at the top of that list is pretty cool.
Yep. And now his nickname is K Dog.
K Dog. Oh, so we changed again. Oh no, I got to retype.
No, we didn't change it. This is his buddy's nickname, K Dog.
K Dog.
K Dog. Everyone knows him as K Dog.
Oh, K Dog.
And yet, yeah. So that's his nickname. I don't know if you have an opportunity to show some of the videos, because if you really want to, complete the story of from where he started to what's possible, this kid has just been a frickin' superstar.
Yeah.
So he, from not being able to breathe to moving to Park City, and now, free skiing, doing the slope style and a half pipe, and that's like the X Games stuff, the big stuff, and in the mountains, and now mountain biking and just living life with pursuing joy has just been really, really, really awesome to see.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. And as a message from the Grampian folks, if you didn't get the message today, go hug your kid and hug your grandkid, because you never know when the time is going to be short to do that. Erik, thank you so much for coming on. You have a tremendous amount of respect coming to you from Boise, and give Moira and K Dog a hug from up north. Thanks, Grampian Nation. This is Jim, and I am out.
Thanks so much, Jim.
When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.